Welcome back. Two questions tonight. What happens when it's an illegal or undocumented alien committing a crime on the Suncoast? But also, has that question overshadowed the other issue in that incredible road rage incident caught on video? There were two drivers involved. Both appeared to be driving aggressively. Road rage is a real and serious issue on our hands, on our roads and our highways. Is this particular case more newsworthy, however, because one of the alleged drivers is here illegally? And joining us for more are Lieutenant Russ McNamee of the Sarasota Sheriff's Office, Frank Patty of the Sarasota Republican Party, and Susan Nylon of the Nylon Report. I welcome you all. Lieutenant, let me start with you. When you apprehend somebody who turns out to be undocumented, how is the procedure different now than it was, let's say, just a year ago and maybe a couple of years ago?
Actually, the procedure really has not changed that much at all. The main thing, anytime that anyone is arrested, they come into our facility. The name is given. The files are filled out. The name is given to the booking tech that we have at booking. And basically what will happen is that all the forms that we fill out, there's a foreign-born checklist. Once that is checked, the immigration will be notified via teletype.
Right. So is immigration more responsive now than, let's say, during the Obama administration?
The numbers would indicate so. It seems, I would say immigration right now, I believe, brings a little more clarity and a little more consistency.
Do they come
then.
out, or do they simply say to you, we're going to wait for the judicial process to run its course before they come out?
I don't know exactly all the details with ICE, but when they receive someone that's foreign-born, they have information based on that person, and they will, based on the facts that they have, they will determine whether, if it's an undocumented person, whether they would actually like to put a hold on that person.
So Frank, we've all seen that incredible video of this road rage incident before. Maybe we could have it and run it a little bit right now. Is this more outrageous because one of the drivers is undocumented, or is it outrageous because you have two drivers acting badly?
I think it's on an equal basis. If you didn't have the undocumented person, it might not have happened.
Well, why would you say that?
He wouldn't be here. Let's put it that way.
Right.
If you take the person who did the offense, he wouldn't be here, number one. But number two is there's a couple of violations here. He didn't have a license and he was driving, right? He came into the country illegally, and there was the road rage where he ran someone off the road. So this all comes down into the same thing.
On the other hand, the motorcyclist, who was also cited in this case, has a lot or a number of motor vehicle violations. Obviously, you know, he acted aggressively in terms of trying to hit the other driver's vehicle.
Yeah, that I agree on. That I can agree on. But that particular incident would not have happened. And there's a number. There's like 23,000 incidences with illegal immigrants. You can check that out, you know, the Center for Immigration Studies. And they're very heavy on that.
Susan, this has become a big thing in terms of nationally, whether it's in Sarasota or the U.S. And the sheriff addressed that when he held his news conference. Let's take a quick look.
What he had in mind and why he would think that it's okay to hurt another human. Simple as that. Like, forget a motorcycle and forget a car. What about humans? What about humanity? You know, I got a 1-year-old to come home to.
Well, we're going to show the sheriff a little bit, but the driver there is very concerned about, you know, he has a child at home here, but then again, you saw him driving pretty aggressively there.
Yeah, I mean, they both have a responsibility to their conduct on the road. It's easy for him to play a victim now, but as you're looking at the video, you see he was equally a part of it. So I'm not a little clear on what the difference is on who he has at home. He wasn't concerned with who he has at home when he was chasing and knocking on a moving vehicle.
Okay, we are just getting warmed up, and we'll have much more on the road rage incident right after we check the first alert weather. Stay with us. And welcome back. We are talking about the road rage incident in Sarasota that recently went viral and the fact that one of the drivers involved is undocumented. Joining us for more are Lieutenant Russ McNamee of the Sarasota Sheriff's Office, Frank Patty of the Sarasota Republican Party, and Susan Nylon of the Nylon Report. Shortly after the incident, before the suspect, or just after the suspect was arrested, Sheriff Knight held a press conference, and let's just take a quick look.
For the sheriffs of Florida, especially for me, this is crime prevention. I don't want him here anymore, and I'm hoping that some type of immigration reform gets done so that the citizens of my county can feel safe knowing this person or similar people to him are not here anymore in the community, running people off the road trying to kill them. We got an individual with a violent temper off the streets with the hopes that he could be removed from Sarasota County, sent back to his country of origin. As far as I'm concerned, El Salvador can have him.
So again, Frank, let me ask you the question. It's good that that individual is off the street. Obviously, he did something wrong with that vehicle, but you have two drivers who did something wrong, and the other driver's photo was not standing next to the sheriff.
That I understand, because there's another incident in there. One thing, they were both idiots, okay, I'll concede that much easily for what they did. But the one person had violated more than that traffic problem. He had come into the country illegally. He was driving without a license. That's what the sheriff was addressing, that a crime was committed, and it was committed by someone who should not have been in the country.
Susan, we keep on hearing about these incidents, whether it's this one or that terrible shooting in San Francisco where a young woman died, and it turned out an illegal alien was responsible for that. And this is what gets the blood pumping of people who say these people are in this country, they are, you know, doing crimes, and we want them to leave.
Well, I'd have to ask, would their argument change if they had entered into the country legally? Would they still commit these crimes? Chances are they would. Unless they are a violent criminal or there's a reason in their past that would give them cause not to be admitted into the country legally, I don't think that anything would have prevented that accident or that harm to that young girl out in California. I think the argument of whether they're here legally or not is irrelevant to the crime. And I think it's just a whole different circumstance that we have to deal with. And I agree with Sheriff Knight when he says, you know, we're only focused on the immediate crime. That's why we're here. And it should be, it's irrelevant whether they're here legally or not.
Lieutenant, there are a lot of people who are looking at the number of illegal immigrants who are taking up space in the county jail, whether it's here or elsewhere, and we have to pay for their room and board while their cases are litigated. Could you give us some kind of idea at any one time how many undocumented aliens are in the Sarasota County Jail?
Sure. Currently, right now, we have about approximately 48 foreign-born individuals in our facility, roughly about 5% of our jail. And it's interesting, as far as with the amount of foreign-born, we basically, when we screen them in and at intake, we basically make sure that we document everyone that is foreign-born. And then when we give that information to ICE, or when we teletype them, they will determine who they particularly want.
And again, are they being more aggressive or responding quicker these days than in the past?
Well, I think they're responding a lot quicker. I think the great thing that they're doing now, there's a lot more clarity. Again, when the sheriff in January had the basic ordering agreement, I think that brought some clarity and just brought some structure to the whole situation.
Frank, you know, again, we see these situations around the country, whether it's a shooting or a road rage incident like this, but there are plenty of U.S. citizens who do really bad things, and they're outrageous, and they make the news like that video did. Don't you think that video would be go viral, whether or not it was somebody from South America or South Tampa?
Yeah, I think, as I say, I think it would. But you're talking about a great deal of illegal immigrants that are for driving problems under the influence of alcohol. 12,307 to be exact by ICE that was picked up as of April.
Where?
All over the country.
Susan, let me ask you this, because I used to do these stories a lot on immigration. and especially in Florida, if you're undocumented, you can't have a legal driver's license, and you can't have insurance, and that we could debate immigration all we want, but if you are getting into an accident with a person who is undocumented like that, you're a victim in more ways than just obvious.
You're also a victim if that driver doesn't have insurance. You're a victim if that driver is just a really bad driver or has a history of bad driving. There's a lot of things that go wrong when you go on the road. And yes, his immigration status is a factor, but it's not a factor of the accident. It's a factor of what's going to happen to him afterwards, especially now. But it doesn't change the circumstance at all, and I think we need to recognize it. We shouldn't lead the story with the fact that he's an illegal immigrant into our country. The story should be led with, there was a road rage incident, there was a lot of bad decisions made, but it's irrelevant whether or not he has status.
Frank, this gentleman still has to go through our court system here. Obviously, you had an attorney in Christopher's story that raises the issue about whether this person will be treated differently in terms of the crime that he is charged with because of his immigration status, and whether that is right or wrong.
I don't see the courts treating him differently. I think he's being held after that for ICE, but the court's not allowed to treat him differently. They have to look at the crime itself. They're not going to bring up the fact that he's an illegal immigrant, as far as I know. Maybe the prosecutor might. You'd have to, ask the lieutenant here for that much. But the point really being, what we say is, okay, Americans do this crimes too, and the other, well, let's add to that. Let's throw another few thousand on top of that. And a lot of these people come from countries. Have you driven in Mexico lately?
Have you driven in Miami lately? I mean,
yeah, no, Mexico's much worse.
I wouldn't testify to that.
Yeah, I would, and I've driven in some of these countries, and let me tell you, they bring the same driving style up. Now, if you got this many, under 12,000 under the influence of alcohol that have been arrested, I don't call that a minor crime.
But that's nationwide. That's not Florida.
Well, that's as far as I know. Yeah, that's nationwide. That's the last count.
The number is rather
April.
Small.
But it's going to be, you have 12,000 people on the road who are potential accident victims.
Lieutenant, let me ask you this, because a lot of people, or when we talk about this, they're concerned in terms of dollars and in terms of who is paying for incarceration and so forth. When you have somebody who is here illegally, does it make a difference in terms of how their stay in the jail is paid for, whether it is local funds, or is it, I know that sometimes for some crimes, the federal government will ask for the available cells in your jail. How does that exactly work?
First of all, every inmate that comes to our facility is treated correctly. As far as we value the Constitution, and again, anyone that is an inmate, we treat fairly, with respect, with dignity. It doesn't matter whether they're undocumented. The interesting thing, we're talking about different places, but we have in our facility, we've had, since we started this basic ordering agreement, we've had actually about over 35 countries represented from all over the country, from Italy, Japan, Paraguay, India, and so it's Mexico, it's all different places. But I think as far as with the payment, as far as the taxpayers are paying that, what's happening now with the basic agreement, actually, ICE is actually giving the jail actually $50 for the 48 hours that we hold them. And let me explain that just a little bit, if you don't mind. Basically, when one of the inmates comes into our facility and they are done with their local charge, and in fact, that immigration would like that person, and they want to put a hold on him, there has to be certain forms and a certain procedure that they hold on. And there's a 203 form, there's an I-247, and also an I-200 and 205. With that, if we hold them for 48 hours no longer, and we charge ICE $50 for that.
Okay, we have to take a quick break, and we'll be back for final thoughts in just a moment. Stay with us. Our guests join us right now for final thoughts. So, Frank, I'm going to start with you, because a lot of folks in your party get excited about this issue. They get angry when we talk about that. The question is, whether they vote on it. You know, it was a major central issue in the recent House 72 race here in Sarasota. You know, James Buchanan was trying to pin down Margaret Good in terms of her issue in terms of sanctuary cities. But obviously, voters around here did not cast their ballots in large numbers based upon that issue.
No, I don't think they did, but actually I was the one who went after Margaret Good on that issue.
Sorry, but it didn't really resonate.
Yeah, I'm afraid it didn't, but that was the issue I took her up with, that she couldn't answer when I gave her the question. She wouldn't answer.
So, Susan, if you turn your political hat on right now, situations like this really are something that people who are against sanctuary cities and want stricter immigration laws will point to and say, this is what we should not have in our community.
Yeah, unfortunately, well, actually, from my political perspective, fortunately, not a lot of people agree. I think that the sheriff has a really good handle on immigration in our community, and I think he responds in the way that most of us want him to respond to. He looks at the individual, he looks at the crime, and then, if necessary, it goes beyond that. I don't think it's a real concern in this community of Sarasota, and people aren't losing sleep over it at night, so they're not going to vote accordingly.
Lieutenant, your colleagues did really quick work in finding this individual. It was great police work in general. In terms of the process now, you said that he has the same rights in the jail right now. As his court case goes along, nothing happens until that's adjudicated.
That is correct. Basically, what happens where the ICE process kicks in is once that sentence is ended, and that's where if immigration would like that individual, that's when that hold, based on those forms that they send to us, if they want that person, then they will take that person. And again, they have the 48 hours to do that.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you all for joining us today. Before we go, we want to share with you what some of you had to say about last night's show about first responders being diagnosed with PTSD. When you think of PTSD, you most likely think about veterans or those currently serving in the military, but recently first responders are also being diagnosed. And we went to Facebook to hear what you think in terms of counseling being provided to first responders. And Lisa says, yes, give me one good reason why not. What they do to deal with and see is horrific and life-changing. Anne says counseling should always be available to them. This is a high-stress line of work. We need to care for them just as much as we care for our own military families. And Kathy says it's not something that is easy to talk about after a horrible call. It is something that you just wish your shift would end soon. Karina says get them all the help and support that they need. They have to lead into dangerous situations with nerves of steel, but at the end of the day, they are all humans like all of us, but with horrible trauma work memories. Those are all great comments, folks, but Florida ranks last in the country in spending on mental health, and we rank dead last because we ask our legislators to not put money where our mouths are. Well, if you'd like to join the conversation about tonight's topic, just visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/mysuncos.com.abc7. And FYI, you can watch past discussions on demand. They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. We want to thank all our guests for being here tonight. Lieutenant Russ McNamara of the Sarasota Sheriff's Office, Frank Patty of the Sarasota Republican Party, and Susan Nylon of the Nylon Report.